Welcome to the Mixed Take Podcast.
Yes, sir.
Wait.
Tell them what season it is.
This is season 3.
Season 3. Back in effect.
That's right. As film, television, and entertainment are influenced by the mixing of cultures and heritages in the United States of America.
Ayo, America.
We are here to discuss them, to celebrate them, and to represent.
Yes, sir.
I am Robert Rivera.
Nice. And I'm Doni Alicia. On this episode, we're talking all things Star Wars.
That's right.
Not the light side of the Force or the dark side of the Force, but the brown side of the Force.
Strong am I in the Force, but not that strong.
Exactly. So, Rob, looking into this topic, this episode, as we dive in, what is your quick take? So our listeners just have an idea generally of what you think about Star Wars.
In the brown ones, the Force is not strong.
That's deep.
Did you get that?
That is, yes, in the brown ones, the Force is not deep.
It's not strong.
Is not strong.
Correct.
It's not deep. It's close. For me, my quick take would be that it's been 45 years since the first film was released back in 1977.
It was my birth year.
And Star Wars is as beloved today as it was then. It's not perfect, but I will say it is beloved.
I'd be loving it.
Yes, sir. Before we press play, let's press rewind on this episode of Mixed Take.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I saw a set of movies that forever changed my life.
For sure.
My father came home from work with a VHS that contained not one, not two, but all 3 bootleg Star Wars films.
Back in the day, man.
That's right.
That the best?
If you wanted to watch The Return of the Jedi, you popped it in, you press fast forward, you go do something, come back and see where you're at.
Right, nice.
The original Star Wars, later renamed Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
Yes.
Not its original title. Almost wasn't made. I know we've heard the story many, many times. It was expensive, it was innovative, and Lucas persevered, and the rest is history. And if you want to know more about this, honestly, there's a great book called How Star Wars Conquered the Universe. Check that book out. I forget the author's name, but it's quite intriguing. A lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. The movies became cult classics by the time I was in college. I know it's weird for me to even use that word with Star Wars, but there weren't many of us. There were a few. Generally people liked it, but there were only a few people who were into it who could quote it. But then shortly after, the prequels came out, and when the prequels hit the screen, Star Wars became a common household property that everybody knew about.
Yeah, it was kind of like Star Trek. So if you remember back, like the Star Trek show had Trekkies. But then once the Star Trek movies came out with Chris Pine and Zoe Saldana, it resurfaced Star Trek in just a new and a fresh way. And it was like, oh, you're not a nerd anymore. If you watch it, you're just a hip, cool person that likes movies. Same was with Star Wars.
Says you. So my childhood had been rekindled.
Nice.
I think that's my relationship with Star Wars. But what was it about these films that captivated me? And I believe it was the diversity that captivated me.
So many different beings.
Of aliens. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I wanted every one of them, their toys.
Yeah.
I remember going to the store and just like, Mom, please, I want this one.
Yeah, Yoda, Wookiees, robots, R2-D2, C-3PO. Absolutely. They were just the coolest things ever.
That one, there's, in Return of the Jedi when they walk into Jabba's palace.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That thing is jam-packed with, like, weird creatures.
my
I wanted
goodness.
all of those. And honestly, I had
Still want
many
them all?
of them. Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
And, like, not just the beings, but the world itself. That there were planets with multiple moons. That, like, I remember seeing Luke drink, like, a blue drink.
Yeah.
that looked like it was kind of Kool-Aid. Like if Kool-Aid and milk had a baby, it was whatever Luke Skywalker was drinking. And I was like, that looks gross, but amazing. I want some. So yes, the whole world was just absolutely fascinating.
Yes, it really was. When the prequels came out, I remember I wanted every collectible. Mm-hmm. However, one thing was apparent. In the first 6 movies of the franchise, I could count every significant character of color nearly in one hand. We have Lando. Mm-hmm. We have Mace Windu, Jango Fett, Boba Fett, Bail Organa, and just for honorable mention, the voice. Just the voice. Honestly, though, that's kind of cheap. If I say James Earl Jones, I have to say the voice of Jar Jar Binks as well. And notice, no women of color.
Which, as we did this research, and Rob, you put this mention in here, it kind of broke my heart. Because, I mean, in the first 6, I'm sure there are beings that are played by women of color. Yeah. But actually holding a leading role, having some part to, big part to play in the plot and, that kind of thing, we're just non-existent.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there were women of color who were covered up in makeup and things. So when it just came down to the humans, none. So while I'll always love Star Wars, and those original 6, honestly, the original trilogy, hold a real special place in my heart.
So episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, those movies.
Yeah, same.
I embrace / expect change as the series progresses, as the property grows.
And when you say change, what do you mean by that?
I mean change in diversity, like see more diversity, characters, meaningful characters, significant characters of color. So I expect to see in this vast universe of aliens and as you mentioned, there's creatures. There's so much diversity. I expect to see more diversity amongst the human characters as well.
Yeah, which are the leading individuals in these films.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So, Doni, what's your relationship with Star Wars like? You guys going steady? Do you guys need to DTR? Like
it's complicated.
It's complicated.
No, not at all, actually.
Okay.
Very similar. The nostalgia is there. I was, a young kid. You grow up on the films. I grew up, my brother is several years older than me. So when he came out, when the first film came out, he would have been 7. I wasn't even born yet. But as a kid, I just always remember my brother having all the Star Wars toys and wanting to play with them. He had literally, a huge Millennium Falcon, which was to me as a shorty, just like the coolest thing I had ever seen. So my love for Star Wars, I think, was really stoked by my family, and still is in a lot of ways. So a couple of years ago, so this was back when episode 7 was going to be released. So it hadn't been released yet, and usually they release them in December. I had my family over. 2 or 3 days, we watched the first 6 episodes together. So literally, I made everything food related had some significance to Star Wars.
Blue milk?
No blue milk, sadly, but there was a Death Star. We did have Leia buns. It was kind of amazing. They're honey buns, but we just
thank you.
They were honey buns, but we called them Leia buns. But just stuff like that. We had Vaderade. It was just Powerade, but I just changed out the labels and photoshopped them up. Ton of fun. But literally, my whole family came over. We literally all dressed up. There was nobody that we dressed up for but each other. And we watched all 6 episodes, and it was fabulous. Then the next weekend was when the films came out, and we all went and dressed up again together.
That's awesome.
So, and, my boyfriend asked, he was like, so who's the odd one out, the one in the family that isn't into Star Wars, that doesn't like it? And I'm like, there's not a single one. We all love it. We're all into the cosplay part of going to the theater and, the whole shebang. So again, there's tons of nostalgia. As as an adult now looking back at the films and realizing, wow, I didn't see a person who looks like me. Up until Andor, I think, is the first time we see a Latina in Star Wars, if I'm not mistaken. But I didn't realize it. And I won't say it necessarily impacted me, and it doesn't impact my love for Star Wars. The story is absolutely, there's love, there's adventure, there's war, there's loyalty, disloyalty, all the amazing things, redemption, all the amazing things that go into making a story great.
There are those are like common human themes that we can all relate to.
Yeah, even A New Hope, like that fundamental, but like you said earlier, I'm with you in that maybe I didn't realize it before that there weren't people that looked like me, but now that I see it, now it's like an ache. Like, please cast people that look like us, and don't just cast them for posterity. This was something that our producer, Rich Hurtado, mentioned as we were planning this episode, that it's not just casting brown people to cast brown people,
right,
but to cast brown people so that we can tell and share stories that are familiar to us. I think one world, if you will, or planet that I really did appreciate was Naboo. Seeing women in positions of authority was pretty cool. So Queen Amidala, and then after Queen Amidala served her terms, she went to the Senate, and then there was another queen.
Queen Jamila.
Yes. And so that was pretty powerful to see women.
Played by a South Asian actress.
Exactly. And so I really appreciated that being written into the story. Mm-hmm. Besides those two, I mean, Princess Leia is probably the next leader that, she was just a powerhouse. And then after her, of course, is Rey. But I really loved Naboo. How about you? What are some...
I just to kind of go back to what you were saying, there were a couple of times where I went to the theater dressed up.
Oh, nice.
Once I was in a Chewbacca onesie.
Yes, very warm.
Yeah, very super warm. Oh my goodness.
My mom was
so hot.
My mom was also a Wookiee, and then she had to trade with her. She was this is too hot.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was wearing nothing underneath, so I wanted to get the full Wookiee experience.
Now you know what it's like to be a Wookiee.
Yeah,
it's very hot.
Exactly. Now, I watch those movies and with a new appreciation for Chewbacca,
a newfound respect,
especially on Tatooine,
for sure.
And then there was another time where a friend and I went and had a lightsaber duel in the front of the theater.
Oh, nice!
We're wearing Jedi robes.
Yes, that's awesome.
And, for some reason, this is so old. Like, they were not playing videos on the screen.
Oh, wow.
And so we had a little duel. People clapped and cheered. I guess I'm a hero. So, yeah. Like I said, the thing about Star Wars that I'll say this so we can move into nowadays. The thing about Star Wars is there was a lot of room for it to grow, but it did have a lot of those themes that really resonated with me. And it wasn't until more people of color and actually Latinos were introduced that I realized, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I see me.
This is what's been missing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I went as Darth Vader. I called myself Lady Vader. Because why not?
Appropriate. Now that we've established where Star Wars has been and what it's meant to us, let's talk about the modern state of the brown side of the Force. So, ignite your darksaber. Let's press play. Now, let me ask you a question, Doni. Star Wars, since acquired by Disney, has tried to diversify their cast and characters. Who are some of your favorite characters of color, and what makes them stand out to you?
I would start with Inquisitor Reva.
Okay.
She is in the Obi-Wan show. She's a black woman who, I don't want to give a spoiler here, so in case anybody hasn't seen the show, one thing I would say is please watch it. It is For me, it was just phenomenal. I've watched it 2 times now. The first time,
Did you mention it? I wasn't paying attention. What show?
Obi-Wan.
Okay.
The first time I watched it, I don't know if there was just a lot of stuff going on, but it didn't really connect with me. The second time around, I was like, oh my goodness, this is the closest thing to episodes 4, 5, and 6, which are my favorites among anything Star Wars. They're the closest to those worlds. And so I was like, oh, I love it. We get more Tatooine. We get the younger Luke and Leia. And of course, you get a lot of Obi-Wan. What I loved about Inquisitor Reva was her strength, her fortitude. She was a leader amongst men. So in this world, it looked like, just men kind of dominated. And she was like, I will not be subjugated. I won't be looked down upon. I am woman, hear me roar. So I really loved the role that she played.
Okay.
You're up. Who did you like?
Well, I hate to go right to Pedro Pascal, but
he
Din
is,
Djarin, the
yeah.
Mandalorian, his sidekick, Grogu. I like
Such a good show.
Yeah, I like that we get this character who has some complexities. He has a past that is a little bit mysterious to us, but it includes loss. He kind of, he's struggling to keep this Mandalorian code, and he's also a bounty hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And then this little baby kind of changes the trajectory of his life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm here for the ride. I'm enjoying kind of seeing where does he end up? Like, what is his ultimate fate in this Star Wars universe?
Yeah. Little factoid for you, The Mandalorian had 7 Emmy wins, which ties the 1977 film for most awarded Star Wars production of the franchise, which is very cool. Something, 40 plus years after the original.
Yeah, definitely.
Many awards.
And I think it does capture the spirit of what the originals were.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, Star Wars, I think, is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a fun movie. There can be depth to it, of course, and there is some depth to it, but ultimately, it should be kind of a ride.
Yeah. Well, yeah, fun. But there's always, the romance kind of guides it. The good versus evil, tug kind of guides the shows or the movies. So yeah, the power of story, right?
Yep.
For me, the next character that has really stood out in the franchise is Poe Dameron, played by Oscar Isaac. I'm a big Oscar Isaac fan. Pretty much love everything that he's done. I really just love the strength. And maybe part of me always kind of gravitates towards those characters that are strong and resolute in what they're thinking and what they're feeling. I like to think of myself in that way too. Like if I'm for something, I'm really for it. With my family or my friends, like if I love you, I'm going to give you everything. There's no half measure. And so I think that's kind of what I gravitate towards in film as well.
Yeah.
Poe was just kind of a all or nothing pilot. Like, I'm going to get this done. Amazing at his craft. So loyal and dedicated to the rebellion. Big fan.
Yeah. Very charismatic. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And a great leather jacket.
Yeah. And a looker.
Easy on the eyes. Agreed. Oscar Isaac, if you're listening, at Doni Jack, DONIJAC, holler at your girl. Carry on.
All right. I would go with, I think, Saw Gerrera is really interesting to me. Forrest Whitaker is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when is Forrest Whitaker not awesome?
Man, he's amazing. He's incredible.
With that eye? You kidding me?
Those eyes.
Dayquil,
NyQuil.
Oh, my goodness. They'll burn a hole in your soul. He plays another complex kind of character. He plays a rebel who doesn't have time to join the rebellion. He's just going to do it his own way. So he's more of an extremist, almost like a terrorist in some ways. But yeah, a lot of complexity, and he has a soft spot for Jen. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I'd say the one thing lacking in, pretty much most of the characters that we've referred to is character development. And I know that really came up big time with Finn, played by John Boyega.
Yeah.
You kind of start to get a glimpse into he's a stormtrooper. There's this, tug at who he used to be and the redemption of now he's part of the rebellion. And then it kind of want.
Yeah, almost in the same movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, you get this moment where he realizes, man, I don't think I like what I do.
Mm-hmm.
There's the bloody hand on his helmet, and you're thinking, man, this guy, what has he
There's
seen?
some depth here.
What happened?
Yeah.
Where that unclicked? A few scenes later, he is helping Poe escape, and he's gunning down other stormtroopers.
Yeah.
It's like, aren't those your brothers?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
right. More development of
Missed
what was
opportunity.
the process? How did he get to this? Very desperate.
you could have done a 3-movie character arc building on just that concept of him, his programming. He's struggling with that. There's so much. Yeah, Doni. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that the sentiment goes across several different Brown characters that we've seen. We see where they are now, but there isn't a lot of backstory. Whereas if you look at somebody like a Darth Vader, there's so much backstory, or a Queen Amidala. There's so much backstory and history, and kind of get a feel for why they do what they do. But with our Black and Brown casts,
It's that they were
not so
developed
much.
because we saw them kind of in the beginning of their journey. Yeah, yeah. I mean, just to kind of throw out real quickly, we had Rose in The Last Jedi. That was kind of, you see, I think also underdeveloped and kind of made to be an annoying character who, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan.
Yeah.
I don't agree with the bullying on Twitter and things like that. Lupita Nyong'o's in it, but again, it's just her voice. But you know who I actually really liked was what? Oh my goodness! Hold on. Why am I didn't write his name down. Glover.
Oh, you did. The Childish Gambino.
Childish Gambino. No, I wrote down
Donald Glover. He's on
Donald
here.
Glover. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna actually.
Oh, I
point
did
him
write
out
it.
too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
There it is.
he's the
I don't know
the
why
young
I cannot.
Lando.
I was gonna say Childish Gambino, but I was like, okay. So Donald Glover, as Lando, I think knocked it out of the ballpark because I don't think he was doing a Lando impersonation. I think that was his take on Lando, and I thought it was brilliant. He was the best part of that movie.
I really like Donald Glover. Pretty much anything that he does, if it's music, if it's film, if it's whatever. He plays in the show Atlanta. There's a short film that he does with Rihanna that I don't know if it's still on Amazon Prime, but it was. He's just absolutely fabulous. So I loved seeing him cast in Solo, and I agree. I think he did an absolutely wonderful job.
Well, the brown side of the Force has been stronger in some properties than in others.
Mm-hmm.
How have you seen examples of the pandering? Or have you seen the examples of the pandering, and what characters of colors have been disappointingly mishandled in your opinion?
Well, one we talked about already is Finn. One that I would say mishandled, and maybe I'm stretching here, so we can talk about this, but I thought it was very fascinating. So in researching, I watched the first 6 episodes again, along with Obi-Wan and a couple other shows. One thing that
Research, quote unquote research.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bum, bum, bum. Anyway, I found it interesting that Anakin is white his whole life, right? Up until he becomes bad and he goes to the Dark Force and then he becomes a black man. And then he starts wearing, black garbs and has almost a hulking appearance. And so, I was like, the intentionality with this once white bright light for the Jedi that, they thought Anakin is going to bring balance to the Force. Once he becomes dark or goes to the dark side of the Force, then all of a sudden everything about him changes, and he's this kind of sinister, menacing, hulking black form being person. I don't know if we really consider him much of a person anymore. But just what are your thoughts on? Am I reading too much into this?
Hot take. Yeah, I don't know. I personally, I don't think it was a deliberate choice of Lucas to say, he is a bad man, we must make him a black man. I've always seen that. I've always seen it the opposite. Like, this is a great opportunity. This is kind of what made James Earl Jones. And so we've gotten him in other movies, and of course he's the voice of Simba, things like that. Yeah, I think that the idea, if you think about Darth Vader clad in black, you can look at it that way. You can also look at it from a perspective of, in a very biblical sense. Think about in Scripture, John talks about the light and the dark, and he talks about the dark being the place where sin is prevalent.
Yeah.
And he talks about the sin, the light where things are exposed. And so, if you take the light and dark themes there, as we've seen in other franchises, I can see that being the case where the rebels, they have this gleaming white ship, and the Empire has dark tones. They're clad in dark gray. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much is there, but I can also see how that does.
Yeah, that good and evil, dark side, light side.
But I can also see how it could strengthen stereotypes.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh yeah.
As dark equals bad, and light equals good.
Yeah. So let's take a look into the future as we press fast forward on this episode.
Great. Is there any Star Wars project that you're looking forward to, or is there any Star Wars project you'd like to see happen that's not already in the works?
So I think something that's in the works is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a Lando show is set to come out sometime soon.
I saw that somewhere, yeah.
Yeah.
IGN or somebody.
Exactly. And I was like, oh, that would be awesome. And I mean, especially if they bring the Childish Gambino back.
That's the only way I want it, honestly.
Let's go.
Yeah.
That would be fabulous. I don't know if that's true or not, but
if it is true, I'm there for it.
I would be all in for that. Absolutely.
Definitely.
I would also like to see more of young Leia, the little girl that they cast to play her in Obi-Wan. She was phenomenal.
Sneaky fast, too.
Oh, my goodness. You're right.
How she escaped those guys.
In the forest.
Very fast in the forest. Yeah, they could not flee from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He could not catch her.
She, I don't want to give any spoilers, but
she escapes.
She is, and momentarily.
Wait, no. Yeah, that's right. She does get.
Yeah. Shh. No spoilers. She's
killed. Oh, oops.
You're so ridiculous. One thing I really love how, man, she is young Leia. There's no pretense about who she is. So if we can get more of young Leia, I don't know if it's going to be in Obi-Wan season 2. If they do their own little spinoff of Leia, I would be so down for that. And even, I mean, we mentioned Andor and Bix, the role of Bix played by, I think it's Adria Arjona, who, interestingly, she is Puerto Rican and Guatemalan, but raised in Mexico, and then bounced around all of Latin America because I think her dad is a singer or something like that. Okay. Just a stellar human being. I mean, we've seen her in films like Father of the Bride, the new Latino, like Cuban take on the film. and the movie Morbius. But she's a great actress. Maybe something with her. Again, some spin-off of Andor. So Rob, how about you? What films are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to Ahsoka. Rosario Dawson, and I think it's going to be, I hope it's a continuation of the animated show Rebels.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So there's a lot of great characters, diverse characters in that show as well that I think I would like to see fleshed out in live action. So that's mine.
I love it. I feel like in Disney Plus, it gives you the timeline order, and it provides the animated shows as well, which I've actually never watched. So I'm like, man, I need to go back through and watch with the animated shows as well.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time to press pause and reflect on points that have stuck out to us or key takeaways. So, Rob, what's your key takeaway?
My key takeaway is that while it's encouraging, I think it's encouraging that we're getting a lot of we're getting significant people of color in Star Wars that I would like to see it go even further. I think I mentioned earlier the brown side of the Force.
Yeah, I love it.
It's not strong. I would like to see some more like brown Jedi.
Yeah.
I think we're getting a lot of characters that are not Jedi that are diverse, but I'd like to see some brown Jedi.
Yeah, even in episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, or sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the younglings are all white. We don't see a brown youngling until Obi-Wan.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh man, that is such a huge miss. For me, I would completely agree. I think Star Wars has taken strides, many more strides to go. Excited to see more Black, Brown, Asian, Polynesian, Pacific Islander stories implemented into the Star Wars universe, and Black, Brown, Asian characters cast into roles that, prime spots, leading actors, leading roles like that.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, this is where we press stop, but have no fear. We will press that play button soon.
We will.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Mixed Take. Join us next time as we continue this journey in the far stretches of the universe.
Yes. Specifically to Middle Earth.
Middle Earth. For you non-nerds, that's Lord of the Rings. And the Rings of Power. We'll talk trilogy.
Yeah.
We'll talk the new show.
Hobbit, all of it. Yep.
All of it. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcast or wherever you tune into your podcast. Also, head over to worldoutspoken.com, a site preparing the Mestizo Church for cultural change, where you'll find information on consulting services, thought-provoking blog posts, and other great podcasts such as The Feature, Questions from the Pew, La Ventanita, the Mestizo Podcast, the show for the mixed people of the mixed church. Also, head over to World Outspoken and order some cool merch.
Yes.
Got some shirts, mugs,
hoodies,
t-shirts, hoodies.
Hoodie season.
Absolutely. What else is on there?
Great stuff. Stickers, journals.
Yeah. There's a bunch of good stuff.
Yeah, please go check it out.
Do it.
Definitely. Special thanks to our producer, Rich Hurtado. Also thanks to Manuel Padilla and the World Outspoken crew. We hope you join us again as we continue to dive into the nerdy part of the world of culture influencing entertainment. And until next time, cut.
It's a wrap.